Hi, everybody! This is Questions Nobody Has Asked about,
Someone Thomas, Mark, and Hope.
and we are here today to do some rapid fire questions that no one's asked, and we're going to answer them, hopefully give you a little bit of behind the scenes of what our show slash series slash stories are all about. So we're just going to get started right away.
Hi, I'm Alfonzo.
And I'm Jerome.
And so my first question here is on who we are. So the first thing I want to know is, who are you?
Well, I'm Jerome Kurtenbach. I am the creator, director, writer, producer, and composer of someone...
And editor.
And editor of Someone Thomas, Mark, and Hope. And I hail from Nebraska originally and through Oklahoma to get here to Hollywood, California.
Yeah.
Who are you?
Who am I? How dare you?
I know.
Anyway, so I'm Alfonzo. I am originally from... Oh, Chavez. I'm Alfonzo Chavez. I'm original Fonzo on Instagram and TikTok.
What?
So I am originally from Phoenix, Arizona. I also have a background in music and, did a little bit more work on my acting skills lately. And yeah, I'm a singer and an actor, and I dance too.
What? He does all these things. He's so talented. So what brought you to LA?
So I came to LA initially to do hair, but really in the back of my mind I knew I wanted to perform.
Oh.
Yeah. And here we are.
And here we are.
Yeah. So what brought you to LA?
I mean, long story short, I was a musician since I was 8. And then when I got to college, I was like, ooh, I want to compose music for films. Who does that? Especially back then. But Jurassic Park, the movie in 1983, really inspired me. The score, the filming, everything. Steven Spielberg, my favorite director. So I was just like, okay, great, I need to go to Los Angeles. So I did, and I'm here, doing this show.
Yay.
Yay. So what excites you most about being an actor?
Well, I think one of the things who I am, what I am, it's one of those two. But I'm a performer. It's what I am. I like getting up and performing for people. I enjoy singing. I enjoy acting. I enjoy the whole process of it, and this whole idea of conveying something or communicating to people in an artistic way. I love art and performing arts. And I think the fun part about being an actor is you get to be something that you're not, but kind of through your lens.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
So what excites you about being a creative?
Well, I love telling stories. And so anything from music to writing a script to directing to even editing now, where I have to do that because of our budget. But I just love being able to tell stories in any fashion, form, or function, really. So I just love being able to dive into different ideas, different characters, different scenarios, different settings, everything. It's just always inspiring to me. So that's the most exciting part about being a creative, really.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
we're going to move on to our next section. That's a little bit about us. And now we're on to the series as a whole, which is...
Someone Thomas, Mark, and Hope.
We keep plugging. We just
Yeah.
hope you know this title by now. But anyway, correct.
So, how did you come up with this series?
Well, Alfonso asked me to a coffee to talk about social media. And while I'm not a huge social media person, I was like, great, let's have a coffee. We'll talk about social media, because he wanted to change his social media presence and how we use social media and integrated with it, especially now that he wanted to really focus on acting as a new goal to go forth. So I was like, well, I'm not a big social media guy, but what if we use social media to express stories and tell stories and create a series that might actually be exciting and something fresh and new for us to put our efforts into. So that's how this series came about.
Yeah, it was me asking you, what can I do for social media so that I can be an actor? And you're like, well, how about you act?
Yeah. I was like, why not just do the thing?
Okay.
Do the thing, so then we can use that as a thing to really be excited about. So, and then did you ever anticipate being in anything like this series?
I didn't see something like this coming this soon. I always thought it would be fun to do something, kind of like Nutty Professor,
Yeah.
or any of these movies where someone played multiple characters. I thought that would be fun. But yeah, I didn't think that would be one of the first things I did with someone on my own. I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't see it like this.
I mean, I didn't either. This is a big what? What are we doing? Okay, but we're doing it.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, we started this in October. So literally, we've just been hitting the ground running on this series since October.
Yeah, he was serious about doing this, and I'm like, oh, we're doing this. November, the beginning of November, we had our first meeting, and at the end of January, we were shooting.
Yep, we did.
All right.
Had our first scripts in December.
So, what's with the title? So many names.
I mean, there are a lot of names, but behind all of that, I really thought, titles are great. Titles can tell you a lot, and titles can really kind of engage you, but I wanted to engage in these characters and these stories in different ways, so I really wanted the audience to get to know their names. So really using their names as the title of the whole series really spoke to me, and especially just the series of Someone, Thomas, Mark, and Hope rolling off the tongue. The title just really felt organic to me, so I just thought it would connect to people the most organically too, so that people can really be curious about who these people are. So that's where the title came from.
And currently pop culture, or has been loving those things where it has a list of names.
Yeah.
With, like, main characters.
Yeah.
And
exactly. And I just think it maybe draws people in a different way than a traditional title would. Like, we all know titles of books and stories and plays and whatnot, but this has specific character names, and you're like, oh, it's a little bit intriguing, I hope. So hopefully you enjoy the title.
Yeah.
But what, I'm reading new question. What's it like to prepare for all these roles? Because you do have a lot of roles in this.
Yeah, and someone who had told me once is like, this must be really difficult to like play all these different people, and I'm like, I don't think about that. I don't think about it being difficult. I just think about what we need to accomplish and what has to happen so that we can do that.
Yeah.
Some characters are more challenging than others, just because of myself and how I relate to them and how I identify with them. And sometimes the challenge with the other ones are not what you think they're going to be. You might think, oh, that character should be easy, and that might be the most challenging one for me.
Totally.
But I think most of the preparation is learning the lines.
Yeah.
That's
well, I mean,
most preparation.
As most things that are this daunting are, because it's just a lot of pages and some monologues.
And not a lot of
Thomas is a very monologue-y kind of character.
Not a lot of blank space on those pages for Thomas.
Right?
Sometimes,
thank you, Taylor Swift.
Sometimes with Hope also.
Yeah, Hope can be very dense
Yes.
with words, but he does it so well. He definitely goes through all these characters. He really. That's one of the joys of putting this together, is watching him kind of shine as an actor and get to play these characters for each role and each story. So it's really fun.
Enough about that.
I know.
Let's talk about what you want viewers to know from your perspective.
Oh, well, truly, I want to talk just briefly about the first impetus of what the series was about, despite it being over coffee.
Yeah.
I really was thinking, we're both Gen Xers, and we both have a unique experience in the Gen X generation, but also a lot of Gen Xers, I think, feel this slight camaraderie, even though generations are very much like everything, very kind of broad and generalized, but there's a sense that this generation might be the nouveau lost generation or new lost generation, just because simply there's a lot of times where we're left out of like lists and conversations where you have people, talking about boomers and millennials, but Gen X doesn't even exist to them. So it's a very interesting way to come at a story. And so a lot of these stories are from the perspective of Gen X, or at least from our Gen X perspectives. And so a lot of pop culture references, anything from the 60s to today, or even in 40s and 50s. I like using the whole gamut of what we've experienced, and really kind of bring that to the forefront. Even in the series No Hope, even though they're younger characters, the older characters, the mom and their uncle, are from Gen X as well. So they're woven into the story in a different way than the other characters. But it's just a fun way to express and hopefully connect to a lot of Gen X audience members, but also everybody, so that they can see kind of bird's eye view of what that might have been like for us in that time period. So, and we're still around. We're still here.
We are.
So,
A lot of us are parents now, but not us.
yeah, not us, but so same question for you. What do you want people to know from your perspective?
What I want, I think there's a lot of things that happened with our generation. Where like, I know the generation before us was kind of in the middle of something, and I kind of feel like we're also in the middle of a big technology shift. For them, they started getting different technologies. Us, it's like the speed at which the technologies have come at us have accelerated
Rapidly.
and also we're the generation that we're told if you follow these rules you get these things, and then and I'm not saying that hasn't happened in previous generations, but
I think ours is a unique one where the rules might have changed and we were unaware that they were being changed on us.
right, and we didn't realize as it was happening. It's like, oh, why am I not further along? Why do I not have these things that previous generations were able to acquire,
despite following the rules that were preset? That's
right.
I think the key that you're bringing up.
And there's a much bigger conversation about that.
Totally.
But that's a whole other economics and history lesson that we're not going to get into.
Yeah.
But I do want people to see that sometimes that life can be fun. Or there's a Mexican American family in there, and this fun younger girl and her brother. You get to see how they interact with each other as a family, and the mother and the uncle, and Thomas.
And the grandmother.
Yeah, I play her also.
Yeah.
And Thomas, he has his challenges, but there's references that we all know that he talks about. He's just going through it, and that's we know a lot more about mental health than we did when I was a kid.
Yeah,
and
totally.
People can probably be like, oh, he has this behavior and that behavior, and back then they would have been like, oh, he's crazy. And Thomas is just that fun. It's that adventure story.
Oh, Mark.
I'm sorry, and Mark is just maybe a previous version of me.
I don't know.
But
we'll get into all the characters more. Cause
he keeps it light and he keeps it cute.
He does.
Yeah.
He does. And on that, like I said, we're going to get into the stories now. So going into No Hope.
What's it like to write the screenplay for my stories?
Well, that's fascinating to me because I get to kind of see, like I said earlier about the stories being a bird's eye view, I get to see a bird's eye view into his heritage and his ethnicity and background.
My upbringing.
And your upbringing. It's all woven into these stories, and I love just listening to the stories and getting to really kind of delve into who these people are. Obviously they're made up, but it's just a very, very enriching experience for me as the screenwriter to just talk about these stories and like pick his brain and figure out where are these people going, where are they from, what are their aspirations besides just their hope, right? As the title implies. But really getting into this family's life and discovering who they are through these little snippets that we see in these characters. So because you're going to get to see multiple characters as we keep going forward, because you'll see Ernesto in the next episode, and then you'll meet Jay in a couple episodes, TOJ. And then, but Hope is, the thrust of the series, and it's just so exciting to write the screenplay from these stories, because it's effortless for me, because of how rich the tapestry and story is for this family. Yeah. So, and also on that, where did the story from No Hope come from? Where did you get it from?
So the characters in No Hope, they're not all. Each character isn't one person. It's different people, family members, cousins, maybe like neighbors, maybe friends of the family, and they're all just things that are kind of like a piece of this person, a piece of that person, and they're all kind of put together. And there's a lot of me in there too, but I think there's a lot of the young Latina girls that I either was raised with or my nieces who they were just so funny, or they did these out of the ordinary things, and they were just so entertaining to me. And I have said this before that, No Hope is a love letter to my family, but I think also, young Latina women, I think like as girls and as young women, I think they have a lot to offer the world in the sense of,
Totally.
creativity and just fun and laughing and
Vibrancy.
and I think that's what hope is. It's the hopes and dreams, and it's like take it into your own hands and see what you can make happen.
Totally.
And also the tightness of the family.
Yeah.
So where do you how do you plan to have all these characters come together? With a very small cast.
Yes, we have a small cast, but we're going to eventually see them all together. Next episode, you're going to see...
The cast is me.
Yeah, the cast is just him. So he's playing all these characters, a la Eddie Murphy in The Nutty Professor, amongst other films. But we're going to do as much movie magic as we can with our budget, and you're going to see Hope and Ernesto together, and then you're going to see all three of them together.
That's going to be so fun, Hope and Ernesto together.
It's going to be fun. We're finding creative ways to put these characters together on screen. Yeah. So that's how it's going to happen. Magic. Exactly, magic. And on that, what's it like to play each member of the family? And just so everybody's clear, talk to us about Hope / Esperanza, so we all get the naming scheme there.
So the whole thing with... in my family, you could have a name in English as your given name or your birth certificate name, but the family might use the Spanish version of your name. Like my younger sister's name is Valerie, and my mom, my aunts might call her Valeria.
Yeah.
My sister's name is Michael, and my name, there really isn't a... Alfonso is Alfonso. Nobody is going to call me Alphonse. It just doesn't make sense.
It could, just not here.
But that's what that's about with her name. Is like, sometimes people will have a name that's on their birth certificate in English, but the Spanish version of their name is used to address them. And that's what No Hope is about versus her being addressed as Esperanza in the show.
Yeah.
But playing each member of the family is a lot of fun because I get to kind of make fun of like people in my family because they're...
And yourself, because you probably see yourself in these people.
I do. And I see both sides of it. I see how somebody else might have teased me or made fun of me and my family, or I might have done the same to them, or we might have used these little comments back and forth to each other, these little ribbing of each other, things like that. And sometimes they landed hard, and sometimes they just went right over our heads.
And the other part of it is how relatable it is. Like it's relatable to see these people interact.
Right.
Even if they're not on the screen together, their interactions via phone or via screaming or responding or dancing around or whatever that is really, I think, relatable for a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
So
what's with the comma in the title? So it's No, Hope.
Yes.
If you've seen it.
Not to be too clever, because it was not an intention to be just clever for cleverness' sake. It was very much to talk about, it could be a command to Hope, the character. It could be, there's no hope in the world. It could be speaking about other layers of what hope represents, the character and the word hope. So I just wanted it to have a little bit of an intrigue in the title without being too vague about it. Yeah. So just the comma was something simple, very direct, and you get to interpret as an audience what you feel as you go through each episode. What is this title really reflecting as we go along?
Yeah, I think I thought it was a great name for the title because knowing the girls or the people that Hope is based on, it's like, oh no, Hope.
Yeah.
Or no, Hope. So that's kind of how I read it. I thought it hit the character right on the head.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the other thing, because the next question is about TikTok.
Yeah.
I think seeing Hope use TikTok as a device is just another way into that she's trying to drive this constant hope in her mind that she's going to do or be someone that she wants to be. So on that, what do you think? Why TikTok?
Well, she did it herself. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that reference, but
I don't. I'm not a big social media person.
I forget her name. She dated Kanye West, and she did her eye makeup
Oh.
very heavily, and they interviewed her and asked her if she did her own makeup, and she said, I did it myself. Yeah.
That pop culture reference I don't get.
Anyway, so TikTok. I think TikTok has become such a big part of our culture and how we get information. And especially during the pandemic, TikTok just really blew up.
It did.
And I use TikTok a lot. Like, I found out about Forrest Valkai through there.
Love Forrest. Shout out to you, Forrest.
Yeah, I follow Astro Lori and the girl who does Veronica, the Starbucks employee, and Cassandra, who does her very grim videos.
And I really only know it as like dances. So I'm only familiar with TikTok like this much. And what I do know is one, yes, about the pandemic making it become even bigger.
Yeah.
And also it's a controversy now, but in the world.
Yeah, or like Dara Star Tucker, who gives like these history lessons about race relations in the United States or music history.
Yeah.
And there's even somebody I watch who talks about like the music industry and laws. But there's so much information that we can get from TikTok. It isn't just dance challenges, and some of it is comedy, some of it is content like we would watch like a show. But I think it's just become such a part of our culture and such something we count on to get information that we can't always get from mainstream media.
Yeah.
And we also get it in real time rather than, maybe later on, years later, oh, this happened and this is a deep dive. It's like we actually get to watch things happen in real time.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, and you can also jump on TikTok and start creating your own content.
True.
And become a pop culture phenomenon just by yourself without somebody giving you permission to do that. And I think that's what Esperanza's doing. She's not waiting for permission. She's just doing it.
She is. Yeah.
So in that way, she's very much a go-getter.
Yeah. And on fourth wall, we're moving forward.
Fourth.
We're moving forth. Get it?
So what's actually going on with Thomas, who is the character in Fourth Wall?
So we don't know quite yet what's going on with Thomas. All we know right now is that he is going through a lot of things. And he has a very distinct coping mechanism with dealing with his feelings as he expresses them. So I love the fact that we get to explore this journey with him and who he is and what he feels, and also what's happened to him. So each episode, as you can tell, has been kind of topical and hopefully relatable to many people of multiple generations. And Thomas is just expressing himself pretty thoroughly, but also just very...
in his way.
Yeah, individually, too. Yeah. And using pop culture references is very much a coping mechanism for him. But
it's a generational thing for us, I think, too.
It can be, too.
I think like a lot of Gen Xers used movie references and TV references and song references to explain things they were going through.
But it's also just grounded in a reality, so they're not just non sequiturs. They're not just like, I'm just going to throw out a quip because I'm quippy, or, whatever. It's very much, his brain works in connected ways. So he feels a pop culture reference come to his memory that also relates to what's going on in his world at that moment. So it's very dynamic and also pertinent to his story almost always. Yeah, so it's very much woven into the fabric of his psyche and how he copes with things and moves forward and gets through things that way. So in light of that, what is it like to play a character as complex as Thomas?
Well, before I really get there, I have to memorize a lot. It's like pages and pages. Lots of letters on that page. Lots of covered paragraphs. Space.
He's monologuing, by the way. It's basically a monologue.
But I think I have a lot of eccentricities that Thomas has. I kind of feel like for me, Thomas is probably the easiest character for me because he's the closest to me.
That makes sense.
And his experience are very similar to mine. And, sometimes I will burst out into some movie quote that's with, a little bit of noise and very in a grandiose fashion, which Thomas does. So I feel like I relate to Thomas a lot. I feel like I know who he is. I feel like I know where he's coming from. And I think more than anything, it's a matter of like, what is he doing while he's doing this? How is he saying these things? Because, you know, you say them one thing, it means something else. You say something another way, it means something completely different. And also, what is your body doing? Where are you going? You know, if somebody's talking and pacing at the same time, you get a different idea of what's going on with them rather than if they're standing still staring into space while they talk.
Right.
You know, those are two very different dynamics. So I think we actually do rehearse. We have a few rehearsals before we actually film, so we can kind of really nail down what we're trying to say with Thomas.
Yeah, it's a very complex thing to put together, but we do it.
So what's with the misspelled title? Forth, Forth.
Yeah, so also not to be, again, too clever, it was just an idea of like, simply put, forth, to go forth. I feel like despite all the things that Thomas is going through and expressing and kind of navigating personally, I still think he has forward momentum and he continues to have this almost air of hopefulness, pun intended, and optimism that is just behind the traumas and the challenges that are kind of weaving through his brain as he expresses them. But I really do feel the title is about that. But it also speaks to the pun of the fourth wall, where is he breaking the fourth wall? Is he talking to us? Is he talking to someone? Who is he talking to? Not someone, the character, but us as an audience. Who is he talking to? And trying to figure out if that title is reflective of all of the above. So I just thought it was an interesting way to use the word fourth, and it's not a misspelling of no U in the number 4. So
Which is a mistake I've made.
Yeah, it's fine. It just happens. Because it's just an interesting way to use the word fourth wall. Because we're so used to seeing the fourth wall, number 4. So
and Jerome loves a pun.
I do love a pun, but these aren't meant to be punny,
right.
Actually, ironically. They're not meant to be dad jokes, as I'm famous for. But are there challenges in doing one-ers as an actor? We'll talk about what that means in a minute.
Yes, there are plenty of challenges because it's a lot of memorization, and it's like you screw up, or you try to fix it as you're going. And I think sometimes the screw up benefits us because we screw up in real life with what we're saying. Sometimes we misspeak and then we have to correct it, or and then we have to like go back and re-say it. And I think that happens in real life.
And to expand on that, one-ers are long shots, one takes, a single take period, and they're in film and television all the time, and they're usually not easily detected unless you're familiar with that is or looking for it. And this device we'll keep using for all of Thomas's story because I thought it was a way to ground the story and to make it feel very authentic and true. So yes, I think the mistakes actually do track as like what we experience when we're talking either to ourselves or to someone else that
or
we
like
don't
when we
always
trip over our words.
Yes, and we might have just these moments where our brain glitches or where we're thinking about something else and say something else, or all these things that happen to us naturally. I think capturing that, even with Alfonso's really, really talented approach to getting through an entire one-er every single time we film, is just really exciting to watch. And it's exciting even despite any challenges that come with it, whether it's the blocking that we have to put together or the any of the moments that we have to justify movement. It's really, really fun to put this story together. So, and then in each what's it like to play Thomas playing pop culture references?
Oh, those are so fun because it's like we do that. Like you and I do that. Me and like there were guys that I grew up next door to. They were always like they would speak in these pop culture references or movie quotes or song quotes, or me and my friends in high school, somebody might respond to some situation or something that happened with a movie quote. And I think that's something that was really big for our generation. Like we did that a lot.
I think it was before, again, I think it was just before most social media.
Yeah.
So we were using pop culture as kind of a precursor to what we do see on TikTok or on videos where people refer to pop culture. Well, we were just doing it in real life.
Yeah.
To make each other laugh, sometimes to also cope.
But it
Like,
also,
if we were having a hard day, we'd just break into another character.
well, it's like sometimes people express in emojis, and movie lines are emojis.
Pretty much.
I think in some ways,
I think
or
so.
song lines, or maybe
Yeah.
a movement somebody would do. You know,
Yeah.
like sometimes you walk into a room and you just go, you know, that's,
Yeah.
it's an expression, you
It
know,
is.
and I think the people that get it, and the people that don't get it are like, what the hell,
I know.
and it's not for them.
So that's a little on fourth wall. Now we're on to extant, which is a very different story.
Yes,
Very, very different.
So on that note, what is happening in this story? What is going on?
Well, it's a lot. There's a lot going on. Yes, Alfonso wants to know too. There's really a lot going on, and the concept of watching a character as the character or as another eye watching the character was something that really spoke to me because I love psychological thrillers, and this is definitely one of those. This character on the surface might look like they might be agoraphobic or have OCD or other neuroses.
And maybe he does have them.
And he might have them, he may not, but we're also meant to question everything that's happening. So I think it's just a series that I was really intrigued about telling, that also harkens back to our time in the pandemic and to what it felt like to be removed from society and to be trapped in our own making, in our minds, and what we might have obsessed over or not obsessed over or lingered on or couldn't move forward with. So I think that's what this story really has going on.
Yeah.
And same question to you. What do you think is going on as the actor behind Someone, as this character's called?
I think this one is like, it's really deep for me. Like Thomas is really deep and he gets really emotional, but Someone is really like, oh my god, he's just really struggling. And you know, in some ways he hyperfixates on things because those are the things, as we mentioned before, he can control those things. So those things he's so aware of and is so stuck on, and makes sure those things that he can do are exactly the way he intends them to be. Because we don't know, we don't know what happened yet.
Yeah.
We don't know where he's coming from. We don't know. We don't know if he's been screwed over. We don't know if he's been dumped. We just know that in episode 2, the letter, we know that somebody made a promise to him that was not, that either was broken or was not followed through on, and
we also don't know if it's him that he's talking about. He might be talking about himself.
Yeah.
So we don't know.
Yeah.
It's a very vague story right now. We'll see more and more unfold as it goes along.
And you know, there's definitely a disappointment in there that he is struggling to handle or struggling to deal with, and I just kind of feel like he's stuck in this loop, and I don't know if he's trying to get out of that loop or if he wants to get out of that loop, but whatever the case is, for now he's stuck in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm getting from Thomas.
Like someone.
From
someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what's the meaning of extant in this context?
Well, extant is a word we don't normally use all the time. We use the other opposite, which is extinct, to speak about species and the survival of species, or in the case of the word extinct, they're no longer here. So extant was just another way to say, hey, Gen X sometimes feels like they don't exist.
Yeah.
Like they're extinct. This character feels like maybe they don't exist. Do they exist? Are they extant, which means here, present, alive? So I just thought it was a very simple way to say this series about someone is referencing all these points in just a simple title. And we don't know. Is there a ghost? Is he a ghost? Is there another ghost in the environment? Is there... What's going on with this character? I like that kind of ever-present question of what's going on. Hopefully keeps everybody watching and intrigued to this character.
Yeah.
So in that sense too, since your face hasn't been shown, since someone's face hasn't been shown, What's it like to play a faceless character at this point?
I think this is, I think playing somebody who you don't see their face, because usually, like even in silent films, it's like everything was facial expressions. It was in eyes.
Very much.
In this, it's body language. It's like the hands. It's the head. It's the like how quickly you move, how slowly you move. You know, are you sliding across something? Are you reaching? Are you pulling back?
Are you looking at the floor?
Yeah, and like when you're walking, how fast are you walking, or what's your walk like?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there's so many other. It really. You take your acting in a different perspective there, or you're using different muscles, I guess, when you're acting, because it's kind of like your ears are plugged, so you have to rely on your hearing or your vision or your feeling more, because you're not able to use that. So we really have to focus on like the movements we're doing. Is that communicating what we would normally communicate with our face or with words?
Yeah.
So it's pretty interesting. It's I do enjoy it. It is a little bit fun to act using different things and not having certain things be a part of what we're normally doing. Those taken away, and it's like, well, how do I communicate this?
Yeah.
Is it a little like, you know, things like that?
Yeah.
That
exactly.
really communicate something.
Yeah, and that's exciting.
Yeah. So there's a lot of moments where we see, like in the first episode, we got the door handle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why are we lingering on that door handle, or in this previous episode, the sheet of paper? You know.
Yeah. Well, you'll see. Not in every episode, but at least the first 3, we're going to see a lot of lingering. I think it's just to speak to, again, simply that this character is going through something that none of us know what that is, and that we probably all have had that moment where we couldn't move forward, and we felt a little stuck, and we fixate, and we look, and we linger. Like the first episode, the camera lingered on the dripping water on the faucet, but many other times it just lingered on the door handle, or the letter, or the wall, or the table, or
his hand,
or his hand himself. So it's just, I just thought it was an interesting perspective that in this world where we're so go, and everyone's wanting something immediate, that this story is the exact opposite, where it just lingers on something uncomfortably so. So I just thought it was an exploration in what this character's psyche is and what's going through his head. And it will, slowly make sense as we keep going on, but that's the point of this story, is to kind of unweave a tapestry, literally kind of thread by thread.
Yeah.
So that's what's happening here. And is it weird to basically play voiceover for this character?
I actually think it's in the same way where we're not seeing his face and he's not speaking while he's acting. We only get one thing we can use when we're doing the voiceover, and it's only sound. It's only speaking. So like we do the acting, we communicate that one way, and then we go and then we have the voice, and we have to communicate everything solely that way.
Yeah,
and
we are.
And the way we play Thomas, it's like he's not an angry person. He's not explosive.
Mm-hmm.
He's very, I would say he almost sounds unemotional, even though he's not. Although I kind of feel like he's actually very emotional, or maybe he does feel his emotions very strongly. But I think the way he handles them, I have to communicate that through my voice. And I think it's really cool to, how do I say that? How am I speaking these words? What's my tone? What's my pace?
Yeah, and on that, I think it's almost like he's contained.
Yeah.
And I think it's just like the story right now. It's very contained.
It's one of the things he can control.
Exactly. And he feels trapped in his own head, so it's almost like his mouth and everything about his apparatus is trapped, so he can't yell, he can't scream, except for those few moments that you do hear yelling and screaming, or like these like bursts that he controls again.
But it's also like, it also helps us tell that story of how detached he is.
Yes.
Because we're showing him doing these things, and then his voice is separate, and even for him, those two are detached.
Yeah.
So, almost like I don't want to, maybe strategically detached in many different ways, and I think that's another way we're communicating that.
Yeah. And that kind of is, again, what makes these stories so interesting and fun to put together. So I really enjoy putting Extant together as well. Even though the screenwriting for that and storytelling of that is very different, I just think it's a fun narrative that's a different approach to storytelling. So, and speaking of different approaches to storytelling, Mark's the Spot is our last story to talk about. So what are we doing with the Mark's the Spot? What's going on there?
So Mark he's just kind of been going along in his life, and then all of a sudden this crazy thing happens to him.
I mean, it's true. And
it just kind of sets him on this adventure. He's I wouldn't say he was putzing around in life, but things could have been better. But he was just like this regular guy, just doing his life, and then all of a sudden, you're gonna die if you don't do this.
Yeah.
And he gets this very vague instructions on what he's supposed to do so that he doesn't die from a future version of himself, which is something funny for us. It's like somebody says, "Oh yeah, you'll know when you find it," and we look back and we say, "Oh yeah, I knew when I would find it," but like as you're going into it, you're like, "What the hell are you talking about? How am I supposed to know it?
Yeah,
I have no idea what I'm supposed to find." But then in hindsight, you're like, "Oh yeah, it was right there," and I think that's kind of some of the fun in Mark.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. So it's basically like Marty meets Marty McFly, Indiana Jones, right?
I mean, on the nose, but yes. This is a story that I never knew I would be able to have this opportunity to make a story that's paying homage to both Back to the Future and the Indiana Jones series. And they are just, formative in all of our youth as Gen Xers.
On a side note, I was of no help on this story at all. Poor Jerome had to pull this out of somewhere.
Well, that's what I do. It's what I live for. There's another reference from the 80s. But anyway, being able to put a character together that references Marty McFly and Indiana Jones and go on this quest and have the MacGuffin, like, so many stories have this MacGuffin, which is what, Indy is famous for going to find every time he goes on a quest. Including the Dial of Destiny, which is the most recent one. And Back to the Future is now a musical on Broadway. So I just love that this is all kind of interwoven into the story. And while, Mark does not have the big budget that those movies do have, we try to do as much creative kind of movie magic to make this an interesting and adventure story that has a little bit of action, a little bit of adventure, and a little bit of intrigue. So that's what I love about this. So, and then, is it fun to play Mark? But more importantly, is it fun to play Mark with a jacket and a hat? I mean, it's very indie. Come on. But Marty McFly had a jacket too. So you don't think of him as having the jacket as an iconic jacket, but it is.
No, that's true. Well, I think of all the stories we are telling, I think Mark's the Spot is the most gratuitous. It's like, it's the most fun. It's like where we do...
it doesn't take itself too seriously.
It does not take itself seriously at all.
But in a good way.
Especially like we have an episode coming up where there's a Yoda reference in there. So
pop culture references.
And there's two Marks. There's Mark, and then there's other Mark who is the version of himself from the future that comes to visit him. And I think current Mark is more challenging for me. I again, that's where I was saying earlier, you would think it might be easier, but he's actually a lot more challenging for me to get like that bubbly effervescence, which I can do as myself, but like to do it as a specific person and in the what's the word? I want to say the containment, but like within his parameters.
Yeah,
because it's a very specific type of effervescence and bubbliness and wide-eyed and hopeful. I think more than anything, he believes. This Mark believes, and I think other Mark, I just enjoy playing because he's just like the older version of him that's like he's done it, he's seen it, and he's over it in some ways. But he usually has some
A little older, a little wiser.
Yeah, he's done some stuff. He's learned it. I think he's had a good time in life.
Yeah.
And I think he's kind of worldly, but he's also wise. You know, through all of that, he knows what's out there, and he. I think he even though Mark tends to be light and bubbly, he does take some things a little too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And I think other Mark, he's delivering this very heavy information, but he's kind of like, you'll figure it out. He's very passé about it, about this thing that's so serious. And I think it's kind of fun to play both of those against each other, but me doing both of them.
Always playing all the characters.
No. So there's no apostrophe in Marks the Spot.
Again, the titles. Not to be clever again. It was just, it's speaking all the way back to Gen X. X marks the spot. Marks the Spot could be about Mark himself. It could be about multiple different things. So hopefully the quest for the audience is to figure out what the title means in reference to this whole story as well. There's other clues that are in the title, that are in the story itself, that are all over what's going on. But yeah, it's very much a multi-layered title, like all four of these are. Actually, all five if you include the series title. But so, what are the challenges of doing an action adventure as an actor?
Again, I mentioned this one's the most challenging, and I think this one for me is the most challenging because it's not based in reality.
Yeah.
I don't like to say there are things that are impossible, but there are things that I'm like, that's probably not going to happen. But, you know, what's the likelihood of a future version coming to visit ourselves? Probably
never.
Not going to happen. But, you know, there's technologies out there that we have no idea about what they can do.
Yeah.
And we broke the sound barrier, in the 30s?
Yeah.
In the 1930s. So who knows what's out there?
Started flying in the 1900s.
Yeah, so who knows what's out there that we don't even know about? Well, we were doing it with air balloons sooner than that.
I know, but what's crazy is that we're recording this on phones, on cell phones, and we're making all this and releasing it in so many different ways on so many different things. And
yeah, and when we were children, we were going.
I know. So much has evolved, and it's, again, speaking to our Gen X experience, and you know, that's actually the challenge of making the series is that we don't have the big budget of a big action adventure, but we are really making.
That's a big challenge right there.
Yeah, and it's just trying to make something interesting and fun and exciting that really allows this character to learn something, grow, and be confronted with himself, literally and figuratively.
Yeah,
it's really been exciting and a way into an action adventure that otherwise wouldn't have been possible.
So on that note, for you, what are some of the challenges of doing this with a very, very, very small budget?
Well, and
we do this out of our own pockets.
Yeah, this is all self-funded and
our own time,
self-made. And with the help of Adrian Lara, and Kitty Crystal and Hezekiah and other colleagues that help us get this made.
We have questions, we ask.
We do our best, but I think the challenge is just to make sure that the audience sees that Mark is going on this journey. So how big or small it is that there's either an emotional, a mental, a physical journey that he is on this adventure. And it is a fantasy, so I like to play into the fantastical elements and to play into, as much as we can with what we are able to do with our resources that we have right now. Yeah. And speaking of resources, that's all of our stories, but we hope you like, share, and subscribe.
And comment.
And comment. Please comment and ask us any questions if you have any questions. We would love to hear from you on YouTube, on
TikTok, on Instagram, and if you have a favorite character, let us know who it is in the comments.
Yeah, we hope you see yourself in any of these characters, some of these characters, all of these characters. They're meant to speak to everybody. They're supposed to hopefully inspire some of them or speak to what you've gone through or what you're going through.
Or at least are entertained in the very least.
And entertained and have fun and just, have some excitement behind it. So, again, like, share, and subscribe. And I guess we'll see you again
for the next
soon.
episode.
In another episode coming out next week.
On Monday.
We'll see you in person sometime in the future. So talk to you later. Bye.
Thanks for joining us.